Picture this. You've got a massive 100-gallon mixing tank sitting right in front of you. Right now, it contains exactly 5 pounds of sugar dissolved in the water. Suddenly, boom, a tap opens up. It starts pouring 10 gallons of fresh water into the tank every single minute. But at the exact same time, 1 pound of sugar is being dumped in every minute too.
So here is the real-world problem we need to crack today. If this chaotic mixing just keeps going, what exactly happens to the concentration of the sugar water after 12 minutes? Is the ratio of sugar to water going to be greater or smaller than when we started? And even more mind-bending, what happens if we literally leave that tap open forever? Does the tank turn into pure sugar syrup, or does it become completely watered down?
By the end of this explainer, you are going to understand the mathematical concept of rational functions, the exact step-by-step formulas to map their invisible boundaries, and how to apply these rules to solve our sugar tank mystery. We'll be moving through the real-life rational problem, defining rational functions, vertical asymptotes and holes, the 3 horizontal rules, graphing step-by-step, and finally, solving the real-world application.
Section 2. Defining rational functions. Let's get right into the mathematical engine we'll use to solve our tank scenario.
So what actually is a rational function? Well, it's basically just a function that can be written as the quotient or fraction of 2 polynomial functions. We usually call them p of x divided by q of x, where the denominator, q of x, is not equal to 0. In simple terms, it's just a ratio. Think of it as comparing 2 things that are changing at the exact same time, which perfectly models rates, concentrations, and things like our sugar per water situation.
Now to navigate all this, we use something called arrow notation. Think of it like your mathematical GPS. It tells us exactly where the inputs and outputs are heading on a graph. An X with an arrow pointing to an A with a negative sign means X is approaching a value from the left. If it points to a positive sign, it's approaching from the right. And an arrow pointing to the infinity symbol, that means our value is just increasing without bound. This notation is absolutely crucial as we map out the edges of our graphs.
Moving on to Section 3. Vertical asymptotes and holes. Let's talk about what happens when the bottom of our fraction actually hits 0.
You've probably heard that dividing by 0 is an illegal move in math, right? It causes the function to become completely undefined. Well, on a graph, this creates what we call a vertical asymptote. I want you to picture a vertical asymptote as an invisible electric fence. As the input gets closer and closer to that 0 point in the denominator, the graph either drops straight down to negative infinity or shoots straight up to positive infinity. It gets infinitely close, but it can never ever cross that vertical line.
But here is a little twist. Not every 0 in the denominator creates an infinite electric fence. Sometimes it just creates a removable discontinuity, which is just a really fancy term for a hole. Imagine you're walking along a path. A vertical asymptote is an infinitely high, uncrossable wall blocking your way. A hole, on the other hand, is just a single missing brick in the pavement. You just skip right over that one tiny, undefined point and keep on walking.
So how do we tell them apart? Here is your structured rule for finding them. First, factor both the top and the bottom of your rational function. Second, look for common factors and try to cancel them out. The ones you can successfully cancel out, those are your holes. But any zeros left over in the bottom that you absolutely cannot cancel out, those become your uncrossable vertical asymptotes.
Wait, this is really important, so let's pause for a second. We know what happens when the graph hits a local restriction, like dividing by 0. But what happens to the graph when the input gets incredibly large? Like if we let time run for 1,000,000 minutes, where exactly does the graph go?
Section 4, the 3 horizontal rules. To answer that last question, we have to look for horizontal asymptotes. While vertical asymptotes are walls you hit along the way, a horizontal asymptote is the distant horizon your graph levels off toward as x goes all the way out to infinity.
There are 3 absolute rules to find this distant horizon, and it's basically a power struggle between the top and the bottom of the fraction. You just compare the highest exponent, or the degree, of the numerator to the denominator. Case 1. If the denominator's degree is bigger, the bottom grows way faster, and the horizontal asymptote is just y equals 0. Case 2. If the numerator is bigger by exactly 1, there's no horizontal line at all. Instead, you get a diagonal slant asymptote. And case 3. If the degrees are a perfect tie, the asymptote is simply the ratio of their leading coefficients. You just divide the top front number by the bottom front number.
Section 5, graphing step by step. Now that we understand these invisible boundaries, how do we actually sketch one out?
Here's your go-to checklist for mapping any rational function. Step 1. Find where it crosses the y-axis by plugging in 0 for x.
Step 2, find the x-intercepts by setting just the top numerator factors to 0. Step 3, draw your invisible vertical walls by setting those uncanceled denominator factors to 0. And step 4, look at the distant horizon by comparing the degrees to find your horizontal asymptote. Once you map these out, you just draw nice, smooth curves between them.
I want to give you a quick pro teacher tip here, kind of like a cheat code for sketching. Look at the exponent of your vertical asymptotes factor. If the denominator factor has an even power, like squared, the graph behaves like a volcano. It shoots up in the exact same direction on both sides of the wall. If it has an odd power, the curves will head in totally opposite directions on either side, one shooting up to positive infinity, the other dropping down to negative infinity. Section 6. Solving the real-world application. Let's bring this all the way back to reality and solve that mixing tank problem we started with. Let's build our rational function together. We want the ratio of sugar to water. For the sugar, we started with 5 pounds, and we're adding 1 pound every minute t. So the top is 5 plus t. For the water, we started with 100 gallons, and we're adding 10 gallons every minute. So the bottom is 100 plus 10t. Put it all together, and we have our concentration function. C of t equals 5 plus t divided by 100 plus 10t.
So our first question was, what's the concentration at exactly 12 minutes? Just plug in 12 for t. The top becomes 5 plus 12, which is 17. The bottom becomes 100 plus 120, which is 220. So after 12 minutes, we have exactly 17 pounds of sugar for every 220 gallons of water.
Let's put that into perspective. At minute 0, we had 5 pounds of sugar in 100 gallons of water. That simplifies to 1 over 20, or a concentration of 0.05. After 12 minutes, our new fraction of 17 over 220 calculates out to roughly 0.08. So we've definitively answered our opening question. 0.08 is greater than 0.05, meaning the mixture is absolutely getting sweeter over time.
Now, you might be asking, wait, what happens if we just walk away? What happens if we literally leave the tap open forever? Do we end up with pure sugar, pure water? Let's apply those horizontal asymptote degree rules we just learned.
Check out the degrees of our function here. The numerator has a t to the first power. The denominator has a 10t also to the first power. Since the degrees are a perfect tie, both are a degree of 1, we use case 3. We just take the ratio of the leading coefficients. The invisible number in front of the top t is 1. The number in front of the bottom t is 10. That means our horizontal asymptote is simply y equals 1 over 10. So what does this actually mean in reality? Well, as t goes to infinity, as days, years, and centuries pass with this tank just running, the concentration will mathematically level out. It will approach exactly 1/10 of a pound of sugar per gallon of water. It won't become purely water, and it won't become purely sugar. 1 over 10 is the absolute physical, real-world limit of our tank, predicted perfectly by our math.
Okay, let's do a quick wrap-up before we finish. Rational functions are essentially fractions of polynomials, making them perfect for modeling real-world rates and concentrations. Any uncancelled zeros in your denominator act as uncrossable vertical walls. And those horizontal asymptotes? You find them by comparing degrees, and they act as a distant horizon, predicting the infinite end behavior of whatever system you're looking at.
Here's a final thought for you. If you can use fractions to calculate the invisible mathematical walls of a mixing tank infinitely far into the future, what other unseen limits in the physical world can you predict next? Rational functions are really just the beginning of mapping out the universe's boundaries. Keep that question in mind, and I can't wait to explore